Hey everybody, Happy New Year. Welcome to the first video on the Blue Abroad YouTube channel for the year 2023. We're inching closer to when the action really starts. And the purpose of this video is to just start asking some questions from me to you, from you to the club. I want to get an insight into what are you actually thinking about and what questions do you have unanswered? And basically how this will work is I'm going to ask about 3 to 4 questions in this video, and we're going to revisit this video at the end of the year. So essentially, it's more or less around what are you looking for? What do you want to know about 2023? One of the first things for me that I'm thinking of this year as to what I want to know happens, and this is something that all these questions are questions that cannot be answered with words. They have to be answered with actions. So one of the first things for me is, how are we going to be able to handle the pressure of not only expectation from the footy community, the fans, but also internally? I would hope at this point with the group and where it's at, I would hope that this group expects to make finals, because you look at the list, you look at the group, how much more talent do you need? How many more number 1 draft picks do we need? How many more Coleman medalists do you need? Do you need another Brownlow medalist? It's just time. It's just time to get serious. So I'm really curious to see how we're going to handle the big pressure moments. We're going to be playing in some serious games this year. There'll be games against those top 4 sides, which historically we've struggled against. We made some progression against them in 2022, but I'm really curious to see how is that going to be better in 2023. How are we going to be able to handle the pressure of the tight, close games and the expectation from all of us, not just external. I hope it's an internal expectation at this point in time in the development of this group. So that's the first one. The second one I'm really curious to see is, how is the club going to evolve in the way it communicates to the members? I think this is a really curious topic. I think sometimes winning can disguise things. I think in general, we did a better job in 2022 of communication. And if anything, we probably overshared how long an injury would take, for example, and then the player would come back early. I think that was pretty smart. But I think there's a maturity that needs to be had with the way in which we speak to the members. And I'm really curious to see if that is even a concept that the club will address and evolve from, or if they won't. I think, I'm definitely finding some frustration with the way in which injuries are communicated or lack thereof. I can understand and I can totally empathize with the need to have certain matters private. And of course, somebody's personal circumstances need to remain as private as humanly possible. But when you choose to publicly comment on somebody's injury, only for that information to be completely incorrect less than a week later, I just think it's something that can be improved on for the club and the way in which we as supporters trust the club. Because I think one of the most important aspects of this change that we've had in the last 12 to 15 months is the trust or lack thereof from the fans to the club. So I'm curious to see that. I'm really curious to see what in the world is going to happen with the AFLW program. I really am. I think my personal view up until this point is I've lost if not all, the interest and passion that I once had for the AFLW. And that's due to the fact that, this is a personal opinion, what I'm watching happen on field over the last few years is not indicative of a program which has a full focus of winning or even developing anything sustainable. I'm not really sure what's happened over the last 2 seasons in the AFLW. I'm not sure what it really stands for. I think also the way in which communication after the season was given to the supporters, didn't think it addressed anything. I didn't think accountability was taken for that from the leaders who actually run the program. Maybe I'm naive in that because there's a lot of information that I'm clearly not privy to, but of the information that was given to me, basically the results of the season, the way in which the games were played, and the way in which we were communicated to, especially at the end, referring to the scoreboard as a success metric and things like that. I'm just really curious to see, is this AFLW program really something that we want to be part of the Carlton Football Club? or is it just something that we do because it's the right thing to do? And that's the honest truth. I'm really curious to see how serious they are about this AFLW program. So that's another one for me. The next one for me is with the AFL program, with the men's program, is who is going to emerge? That's always the big question. I still think I don't necessarily think we need any more superstars to emerge. Yes, it would be great if there could be another A-grade player that emerges from the group right now, but I'm really curious to see, do we really have depth, or is it just a magic word that we all hope for? The guys that are coming back from injury are obviously talented. We know we've got some faith in these youngsters, but I'm really curious to see which of these players is going to step up. There's always a surprise packet with the season. There's always somebody that you don't expect to perform in the way that they do, and they end up doing really well. I think Matt Kennedy was a good example of that. Like, I expected him to be a solid contributor last year. I did not expect him to elevate to the level that he did. So I'm always excited to see who's done the work, who has really done the work, and the work ultimately shows the longer the season goes on. Players talk about it all the time. Every time we listen to them talk about a preseason and how much it really sets them up for the year ahead. And I think this is no different. So I'm looking forward to seeing who that person or who that group of people is that is going to emerge. And my next question is focused on the health of the list. I think this is one of the most important factors of 2023. I look at two things really as the critical factors going into this year. The first one I've mentioned is the ability to handle the pressure and the expectation. And this next one is the injury and the health issue that we seem to be having. We had Pomming on the show a few weeks ago talk about how we've been top 5 in the league for injuries for 3 years in a row. So I guess my question is, what is the health situation going to look like at the end of 2023? The way I look at it, every year it's a clean slate and it's just unlucky every year. But double-digit injuries, when you get to like 13, 14 injuries in a season with players, listen, it's a brutal game. There's no denying it's a brutal game. There are collision injuries. There are things that can happen that are not in our control. I'm more focused on what is happening with this health injury issue on the list year in, year out. What is happening that actually is in control? So I guess my question is, how many players are we going to be able to see play a full season? We had 3 last year, which was fascinating because 2 of them were Sam Doherty and Charlie Curnow, and knowing the history that they had. But what is going to happen with our health? And will our health ultimately hinder what we're capable of doing in 2023? That's my question, because it's just getting to a point now where it can't be just a matter of being unlucky. There has to be something else that is in our control. Now, of course, everybody at the club would be looking at everything that they can do to be better, of course, but the reality is, year in, year out, it's just been crippling. So I'm really curious to see, how does that play out this year? Are we going to get the health on the list that we need? Is injury prevention even a thing? Are we just living through a time where this is the hand that we're dealt and the injuries are the injuries? Is that just what it is, and does it need to be accepted? Or are there going to be things actually put in place that can change the course of the health of our list? Now, we listened to Luke Sayers talk on the Summer Sessions podcast. He alluded to the fact that there were certain things being put in place. So that's, I guess, the catalyst for me being really curious around what that is and what those measures are. And so we'll look at that at the end of the year. We'll look back at this video and react to it. Those are my questions. I want to know from you, what do you want to know about this year? What are some of the questions that you have about the Carlton Football Club coming into 2023 that cannot be answered with words and can only be answered with actions? I look forward to seeing where your minds are at on this one. Let me know in the comments below and we'll chat there. See ya.